And we're live.
And we're live. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is
I
a
see
great
button
thing.
that says live.
Welcome, guys. I'm Blaine Bartlett.
I'm Doland White. Welcome to this afternoon to today's Wednesday, right?
Today is Wednesday, and
Yeah.
we are doing what we promised.
I know. By golly. Which is to be here. But I think we've got an interesting conversation for everybody today around sustainability.
Sustainability, yeah. Yeah. How do you develop the capacity for sustainable success?
Ooh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, and it is a capacity. That is a capacity question, and we're going to talk about what we mean by capacity in a little bit here.
That's right. That is a big sentence. Yeah.
And you can see the Chiron down below here. I'm going to just kind of mark that out real quick. We are very interested in having a conversation with you. Dolan and I, yeah, I mean, we got this color hair. We've been around a while. Impact is what we are interested in,
Yes.
in making. We've worked in the field in the domain of leadership. We've grown organizations. We've sold organizations. We've done all kinds of stuff around the world, literally around the world. Yeah, I've been in front of over 300,000 people. I've touched about 1 million in the work that I've done. Impact is important to me. And at my age, if it's not impactful, I don't want to do it, which is why you see this little Chiron down there. We'd love to have a conversation. So when you listen today to what we're talking about, listen from the perspective of how could I use these two middle-aged white guys.
And thank you for saying middle-aged. That's rather than the overarching declining age. Exactly. I'll go with middle-age. I'm going to go with middle-age. I'll stay with middle-age with you on that. But yeah, that's a great point. And as you're listening to this, whether you're listening to this with us live or you're listening to it as a replay, hang with us. This isn't going to be a really long conversation today. No. But it's an opportunity for us to talk to you about sustainability, what we know about sustainability, and what we can do to help you kind of accelerate that process. You can go figure it out by yourself, but we'd love to help you with that process.
That whole, when we're looking at business leaders and businesses, the mantra and the holy grail is, how do I scale my organization? How do I scale it? And the default almost always is, what do I need to do more of? So scaling harder. We're not interested in making things hard. How can I scale more intelligently is really what we're going to be talking about today. And that opens up the door to how do we sustain success? It's actually easier than what you might think it is, but you have to know what to pay attention to.
Yes. So we'll share that. Let's share that.
So
let's do that.
Right up here. And by the way, that QR code that you see up in the corner there, that is basically the same thing as you see in the Chiron that's trailing below here. So how do you build capacity for sustainable success? Brought to you by Blaine Bartlett and Doland White.
Yeah, that's right. That's us.
So
one of the first things, and this is not a webinar, but I put these in here deliberately just to talk about it. This is every Thursday. Blaine and I do a presentation here again on LinkedIn right around noonish called The Power of You, and I tend to talk to you, right? Because it's when we talk about leadership is that sport that starts with us. It starts with us. And so I was thinking about, so what challenges do we face? And these are things these aren't Dolan's and Blaine's things that we make up or fabricate. These are challenges that our clients talk to us about. I had conversations with a client this morning about these topics, that success often comes with unintended consequences. And with unintended consequences, you suffer things like stress, you burn your team out, you create turnover, and there's a cost involved in turnover, by the way. And misaligned growth. You've got people going this way and people going that way, and no clear directional focus on a worthy ideal. You're like that poor guy standing in the waves. I like that picture. I saw that picture. I thought, I've been there before. That could have been me years ago. And then today we're going to be talking about, for the sake of transparency, a mastermind, and we'll have an invitation for you to have a conversation with Blaine and I. You can't just go join the mastermind. You've got to unfortunately have a talk to me and or Blaine. And it is to your, Blaine, you mentioned this around a lot of masterminds, and a lot of focus is on scaling harder. I'm going to scale. And they lose track of that fact that as an organization scales, people disconnect. And you lose touch with that worthy ideal inside of the organization. And when that happens, you as the leader, you start seeing it because you don't have balance. And when you're out of balance, profit suffers, purpose suffers. What are we here for? What are we really working towards? What's our worthy ideal? Come tomorrow, we'll tell you about worthy ideals.
Yes.
And then when that happens, that always occurs, it's at the expense of others. Your people, your culture. It's not at the expense of it. This starts to occur inside of organizations. And when that occurs, you find yourself as a business owner, and I think for a founder or everybody that joins any organization, we all join with the intent of leaving some sort of legacy. And we may not be the owner, the founder, but the legacy we leave is how we influence the people around us, how we change their lives, how we change the lives of our clients, how we create better things for our kids. There's a legacy that we leave behind. And when these things start to happen from a flow inside of challenges, you break that replicability and that authenticity, right? That legacy that you're trying to leave in your place kind of vaporizes.
Yeah. And what we're talking about through all of these 4 bullet points here, in large part, has to do with what we're terming the soul of the business. How do you keep yourself connected?
Yeah.
How do you keep your people connected to that soul that is unique, that makes your organization unique, that makes your team unique, that makes you as a leader unique? So there's really 3 components to this whole notion of sustainable success. I need to be successful myself, and I need to learn how to do it as a leader. How do I sustain my leadership prowess, my leadership ability? I have to stay connected to a font that actually is inspirational. And that inspiration leads to, how do I work with my people? My people need to be inspired. This whole notion of motivation, throw it out. I do not want to be working with leaders that are trying to motivate their people. I want to be working, and I'm fortunate enough to be working with leaders that are interested in inspiring their people, inspiring their constituents, inspiring their customers. Inspiration is an inside-out piece, and it always leads to increased growth. Inspiration is a growth mechanism. And then the organization itself, it's unique, and it does have a soul. And as you start to scale, and this is the problem with scaling harder, is you start to lose focus, as Doland was talking about just a moment ago. When you start to scale harder, you start to, all of a sudden it becomes about the business. It becomes about the business. The business is important. Absolutely. You've got to have the systems, the processes, and all the structure, the infrastructure, the back office. All that stuff has to be in place. Yeah. But if you're scaling harder, you run the risk of losing connection to the soul that powers everything. And that's where this last bullet point, you become replicatable and replaceable. There's no uniqueness.
It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the things is you were talking about that, and we've seen it with clients that we've worked with over the years, clients we're working with now, that through that act of scaling, you sacrifice soul, because scale becomes the thing.
Yep.
Not an outcome. Scale is, this is the thing I'm doing. The buts take over. But anyway, tomorrow we'll do buts tomorrow.
You're going to do buts tomorrow. The power of you tomorrow. So one thing at a time, though.
Sorry, here we go. So you want to hear? You go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everything has to change. I mean, if you're not changing, you're dying. I'm just going to put that in the there's a flag in the sand here. If you're not changing, you're not growing. And if you're not growing effectively, burnout, because what happens here when you start scaling hard is you start losing connection to what's meaningful. Burnout never occurs if you're working too hard, as long as meaning is still present. Slip a pizza under the door. I'm loving what I'm doing. I'll be here 20 hours a day for the next 7 months. And I love it. I love it. There's no burnout involved in that. Okay. The risk of not being able to scale smarter, not harder, is that you begin to lose that connection to what's meaningful. We call it, the for the sake of what. Yeah. And Simon Sinek organized around the why, but we're actually talking about a much deeper dive on that. If you're not changing, if it's just more of the same, turnover increases. And I'm not talking about revenue turnover. I'm not talking about sales turnover. I'm talking about people walking out the door. That is expensive. Yeah. It is incredibly expensive. And part of the idea here, when you're really looking at how do we sustain success, is one of the questions you can answer is, how do we become an employer of choice? Why would people really want to come play with us rather than going someplace else? That's a big question. That's one that is a lot of fun to play with. If you're not growing, opportunities are lost because you're stuck firefighting. Let's do this one more time with feeling. It's, because we've lost connection with meaning again. Ultimately, profit starts to erode. And if we're looking through the lens of what are we building, what are we building that other people can stand on and build after we're gone? It's a sandcastle. There's really no there.
Right.
Yeah. It's just a house of cards.
Yeah. That's that whole for the sake of what, that worthy ideal, that thing that creates inspiration is gone. And it's funny because, as giving this thought, kind of as we're coming into, and by the way, Blaine and I have a tendency to teach rather than sell. So here we go. So good luck if you're listening today, we're going to teach. But it's interesting kind of thinking about this coming in, why are we taught, these two slides are death and taxes slides.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here are the things. Yep. But as leaders, and you're listening to this live with us now on LinkedIn, or if you're listening to us from a replay perspective, the important thing behind that is these are things that you as the leader, you impact, you set the influence, you co-create, you drive these things. So Blaine and I have dedicated ourselves to how do we take the experiences that we have to help you shorten that cycle to figure it out. How do we help you become a leader, become that leader that you aspire to be? There was a saying that I was reading in a book this week, Blaine, from one of my podcast guests, and it was, how do you become the leader you always wish you had?
Mm-hmm. Great. I like that.
And that's really what we're going to be talking about today, about the three pieces. And Blaine kind of alluded to that. How do you become that better leader? How does your team, the people inside of the body of your organization, become better at what they do? And then how does your organization improve? And I love this quote. What got you here won't get you there.
Yep. And that's, if you're not changing. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. One more time with feeling. Oh, yeah. Look, we've changed the chairs on the Titanic. Oh, yeah. They're in a different position now.
Exactly. We're still going down, but by golly, the view's better.
The idea of what got you here won't get you there speaks to the notion of really what Doland and I's work is all about. And this is the notion of sustainable success. Part of the way that we define sustainable success is developing the capacity to continuously start over. And I want you to just, as you're listening to this, as you're watching us right now, think about what that feels like. You know what I mean? Feels like you got to start over. Oh, adults hate, and this is a broad generalization, but it's also really accurate. Adults hate the notion of starting over. What do you mean I've got to start over? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've accomplished? Do you know, look at my pedigree. Look at what I brought to the table. Okay, got that. Now let's start over. Yeah, that's the past. The past does not influence and inform what the future could be. For
Yeah.
too many organizations, too many leaders, too many people, the past informs what their next step is, and they end up basically, it's called retired in place, RIP. You end up in a rut. You end up in a rut, and a rut is nothing more than a coffin with the ends kicked out. That's all a rut is. And what got you here will not get you there if you're looking for aspiration and inspiration. Yeah, it lives outside of your past experience. And that's where this soul of business mastermind starts to come into play for us. And we're very intentional about naming this thing the soul of business mastermind.
Right. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about what the mastermind's about just for a few minutes, and then give you an invitation to have a conversation with us. But I included this slide deliberately, and you've heard us allude to this. Whenever Blaine and I speak, whether it's together or apart, to audiences, to our clients, whatever we're doing, we're grounded in this sentence. And I changed the title, What It Means to Be a Leader in the World Today. Not yesterday, today.
Not when Hannibal crossed the Alps with the elephants.
No, today, right now. And leadership, I'm doing my thumping right now. So, but leadership is the activity of influencing others.
Not command and control.
Yep. And then to co-create. How do we do this together? How do we create together? Coordinated means we know how we're going to move forward, and we've created an agreement to and with each other to move towards an outcome.
And that becomes really crucial when you start looking at that next piece.
Yes.
Because, again, what got you here will not get you there. And there is an inspirational point that lives outside of your experience. You haven't done it yet. You haven't been there yet. It's this thing out there that sets us apart in a very unique way. And it's the soul expressing itself in a very fundamental way. By definition, that territory is unknown. By definition, because it's unknown, you're going to step on each other's toes getting there because you don't know the safe path. So how do you actually coordinate your movement? That's part of what the leadership challenge is making sure that people can coordinate in the face of the unknown.
Right.
Yeah. Which has to do with how do you actually leverage conflict, not eliminate it. You want to because you're going to have friction. You're going to have people rubbing up against each other. And friction creates heat. Heat cleans things out, and then it also generates light. Oh God, we never saw that before. Never noticed that before.
Yeah, not literally rubbing up against each other, though.
Not literally. No, we've got we got sensibilities here. HR will be upset about that.
Exactly. Rewind. All right, but and then we talk about that pursuit of the worthy ideal, and in short stance, the pursuit of the worthy ideal is what matters. It is not a 10% increase in revenue. It is not an increase in profit. It is not the ability to move more pallets from A to B. It is what matters. And what matters not only matters to the organization, it matters to the team, and it matters to the individual.
Yeah.
And when you bring all of that together, this is the founding principle that Blaine and I talk about. We won't go any further today for the sake of time. When we talk about leadership, and that's why I wanted to agree, and I renamed this. This is what it means to be a leader today. This is what it means. It's the activity. Leaders cause movement. You're influencing, not command and control others, because your organization is merely a collection of people in relationships. You're co-creating. Coordinated movements. It means you're going somewhere you've never seen before, and you're pursuing what matters. That's a bigger sentence. That's why it's this short. We make it.
We made it short.
That's easier to remember.
But again, to the point you're raising here, I mean, foundationally, everything we do is built on this definition. Everything we do is in service of this definition. What we like about this definition is very simple. There's only 5 pieces to it: influencing, co-creation, coordinated movement, pursuit of a worthy ideal. That's only 4 pieces. But there's an ACT model that comes into play with that we're going to be talking about a little bit later.
Yes, there is.
So the soul of business mastermind, how do we go about achieving that definition? Now, here's one way to think about effective leadership. And I want to make a distinction here. Leaders cause movement. Doland mentioned that. Now, what's interesting about that very simple definition, what is a leader? Well, it's somebody that causes movement. Everybody is causing movement all the time when they're with anybody else. You walk into an office, you walk into a grocery store, you come home at night, you're causing, people have to adjust to your presence, and that adjustment is movement. Yeah. And part of what we want to look at, and this is where that worthy ideal comes into play here, are you causing the kind of movement that will generate the activity and the actions necessary to produce the results you say you want? That's a metric of effectiveness. Most people don't understand that notion, and their way out is going, well, I'm not a leader. Oh, bullshit. You are a leader.
That's a technical term, by the way.
You're just not being effective. You're not consistently causing the kind of movement that needs to be generated to produce the result that you say you want in your life, with your people, and with your organization. What gets in the way? Your mindset is the problem. It's not a skill set question. It really isn't. Most people know how to communicate. They may not be masterful at it.
Right.
But you know how to read a P&L. You know how to, all of that stuff comes into play. And it's not a function of skill. It's a function of mindset, paradigm. It's all around this question of effectiveness.
Right.
Which is why we start, looking at how do you, sustainably build success. This is a capacity question. Capacity lives in the mindset. Capacity around courage. Capacity around your ability to handle conflict. I mean, these are areas of capacity, trust building capacity. Mm-hmm. Do you have the capacity to hold a context when everybody else is going, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah. All of that stuff comes into play here. So the mastermind were developed, and this is the 5th year that we'll be doing this mastermind. This thing is tried and true. It is something that we have developed, Doland and I together, based on material that we have utilized over literally almost 90 years worth of work. Yeah. This is not theoretical. This is very, very practical. So it's a year-long program, 52 weeks of live mentoring. We meet once a week. Doland and I facilitate a weekly meeting. We've got peer set up, and this is why we call it a mastermind. We break out into peer groups every week to discuss what it is that you and your organization, you and your team, you and yourself are actually dealing with. Mm-hmm. And we've got very specific frameworks that we organize around, and we'll show you this in just a moment. But there's a framework to this 52 weeks. It's not just kind of show up and let's see what happens. There is a very specific framework to it. And there's a whole workbook that's been developed. We've got video structures. Just all kinds of things that are in play with this. Yeah. So this is the high level overview of what this is about.
A lot to it. Hence the need to have a conversation. A lot to it.
That's why you want to schedule a conversation. Go to https.
But one thing I want to touch on, though, you said something that's not that you don't say things that are important before, but one thing I really want to kind of lean in on, and as you're listening to this, leaders, or as you're thinking about this, we live in a headline world. We live in a world where we get emails. I had an email come in this morning, the 3 major tips that were going to turn me into a leader. And I saw that and I kind of went, wow, I got to read these tips because apparently I've missed the ball. If it's only 3, I got to pay attention. So we live in this headline world, which is hence why it's a 52 weeks of mentoring. And we'll talk about the domains here in just a moment. But Blaine, you said something I really want to just touch on before we go to the next slide, which is there's a difference between mindset and skills.
Oh, yes.
There's a night and day difference. You can develop skills. You can learn to cook. You can learn to drive a car. You can learn to scuba dive. You can learn to surf. You can develop a skill to do that. But it is the mindset that wraps around all of these things that we can learn that determines the level of success at which we can apply those. So we focus in that area on, we assume as part of the conversation with us, we assume a level of skill. We're not here to teach you the skill.
Right.
We're here to help you turn that skill into a result that you would not get to another place, which is mindset.
By shifting the mindset.
And we give you the tools to do it. It's not just, it's not woo-woo stuff. So, all right. But Doland, I said it. There you go. I'm done. Now this is the shameless plug slide. You want to, and I'll read Blaine, and then you can read mine.
Okay.
So Blaine, who I've known for years and years and years, we've known each other many years now at this point. Author of Compassionate Capitalism. Compassionate Capitalism, by the way, is a book that Blaine wrote years ago. I was CEO of a marketing firm at the time. Goodness gracious, 11, 12, 13 years ago. And Compassionate Capitalism and I became friends. I have it still sitting on my desk, dog-eared, because I went, well, this is good shit. And in the book Compassionate Capitalism, co-authored with David Meltzer, along with the book Leadership Mindset Weekly, those two domains of expertise came from Blaine's experience inside of places like Nokia, Starbucks, PricewaterhouseCoopers, IDEO. So these are principles that weren't in the sky, but principles with learning, creating, testing, finding things that work, things that didn't work, and ultimately creating a set of common principles that help leaders become better at what they do. So this is Blaine's plug, and I always love plugging my friend Blaine, man, because I got many good things. We could go on for 20 more minutes before I stop talking about it. His conversation about me is very short, so go ahead.
No, it's going to be just as long. It's kind of, we've known each other for a long time, like you said. And one of the things that attracted me to Doland was the intentionality that he brought as a CEO to the work that he was doing. It wasn't just about the bottom line. The bottom line was important. Obviously, you can't have a business if it's not profitable. But 40 years of experience. He had some fascinating ideas, and more importantly, he knew how to execute on those ideas. And as a former CEO, as a COO, and a coach, and you particularly, I'm going to just leverage the coaching piece here. I've seen you work with clients. I've heard clients talk about the way that you worked with them, and the idea of implementing systems. And you've got a whole 4-pillar model that we've actually, made part of the Mastermind program here. Yeah, that is the executional part of how we go about being an effective leader. The mindset is one piece of it, and that's where the 2 books kind of inform some of that stuff. But more importantly, it has to be executable. And Doland is an absolute master. I mean, the work that he's done with Raytheon, with Deloitte, these are things that are just, you don't learn this in a book. You learn this by actually getting your hands dirty. And Doland has gotten his hands dirty. This is not theoretical. It's theory and application. And partly the way that gets handled is you get knowledge, but then you shift it, or you get information by doing stuff. Then you form knowledge. There's a knowledge base that gets developed out of that. And then there's the wisdom that comes from being able to understand how to apply that. It's the old metaphor of, the guy that was paid, invoiced Henry Ford or whoever it was, $6,000 for, finding the place to pound the hammer. You didn't pay, you paid. I pounded the hammer. It took me 5 minutes to figure this out, but here's the last 15 years of me learning how to do that you're paying for. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. The wealth of experience, the wealth of hands-on experience that Doland brings to this partnership in this Mastermind program is just exceptional. Absolutely extraordinary.
I feel like I should sit taller.
So this is who we are. I mean, this is just kind of, this and $3.50 will get you a cup of coffee. But we do want you to know that we do know what we're talking about. We've actually lived this work.
And continue to do it. So,
yes. So here's our path, and I'm going to drop us down and bring this up. There we go, so we can see that fully. Mastermind, 52 weeks, and here are the 52-week headlines. I mentioned the ACT model. Leaders cause movement. They act. They cause movement by acting. And we've got an acronym that we work with that's called ACT, ACCCT. Awareness, context, communication, commitment, and trust. Mindset is everything. Consciousness is everything here. There's nothing that gets developed where consciousness is not involved in some way, shape, or form. So we will be spending 3 months, literally 3 months, in the domain of awareness. So when we're looking at sustainable success being about building the capacity to continuously start over, these 5 domains are the capacity builders. So in that first 3 months, we're going to be looking at the nature of consciousness. Now, where does that come into play? And consciousness has to do with imagination. It has to do with being able to define a worthy ideal, all of that stuff. What gets in the way? This is where noticing comes into play. Yeah. Squirrel. Okay. What just hijacked my attention? How do we move with flow? How do we get into a state of flow with ourselves, get our people into a state of flow so that perturbation, the stuff that knocks us back doesn't become problematic. We actually know how to actually bring it into what it is that we're doing. 3 months in awareness. We'll spend 2 months in context. Context is meaning generation. All behavior is generated out of meaning. You look at the way somebody behaved. They behaved in that way because it was meaningful to them in some way, shape, or form. You may not have a bloody clue about what that meaning is, but that's what's going on. So we talked about, inspiration versus motivation. This is where you start looking at how do you inspire people? How do you keep them connected to that inspirational soul that allows for growth to occur, for expansion and creativity and innovation to emerge? That's where that piece comes into play. Communication. Doland mentioned earlier that all an organization is a collection of people in relationship. That's all any organization is. And if the relationships are working pretty good, you got a pretty good shot at being successful. What allows for relationships to be successful? Communication. Every organization I have worked in for the last 40 plus years has had a communication issue. I mean, that's one of the very first things when we're contracting. Well, we've got communication problems here. People don't know how to communicate. They talk a lot. They make a lot of noise, but they haven't mastered the process of communicating effectively. Communication is the way that we actually generate movement in an organization. So clarity comes into play here. How do you generate common meaning? And if we're looking at leadership through the lens of it being an activity of influencing others, influence is a big piece of this particular domain that we actually look at. And communication, and this is where influence gets to be interesting. We're not talking about talking. We're talking about, and most of you have heard that are listening here, the whole notion of leadership presence. Presence is a communication form. How do you show up? How do you show up? Before you ever open your mouth, you're causing movement. The minute you walk in the door, you're causing movement. Most people don't have a clue about what's going on there. And that is a communication protocol. So how do we actually work with that? Commitment. This is one of my favorite domains, because what we do here is we break people's attachment to thinking that they know what commitment is. I'm committed to it. I'm committed to that goal. I'm committed to that objective. Committed is something a little bit different than that. Committed has to do with, I'm going to put us both in here again. Committed has to do with an interstate. I am a commitment. You become a symbol of what it is that you're trying to produce. That's what's going on here. You become a symbol. I am a commitment. So embedded in that is a whole notion of personal mastery. You as a leader, how do you master your ability to know what's going on, to hold the state, to cause movement? How do you master yourself in that process? Leadership is an inside-out process. And then the final piece, the T in the ACT model, is trust. If communication is the mechanism by which relationships actually kind of transact their business, it's all on a foundational bed of trust. Without trust, it just collapses. And all things go, kind of willy-nilly. So this is the model that we're going to be working with, and we spend 52 weeks on this roadmap. Now, that's probably more information than you ever wanted to have, but that gives you a kind of a clue as to where we're heading and why we're taking 52 weeks to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important part. Why it's 52 weeks. Because it is not a 3-bullet headline email.
Nope.
It is 90 years.
And this is not skill development. Again, to the point that Doland made earlier, we're not looking at skills here. This is how I think. Yeah, how I describe something determines how I feel about it. How I feel about it generates my behavior. This is a process in 52 weeks of changing the description process that you hold about what reality is. Who am I? Where do I belong? Change that description, you start to change the entire system. And that change doesn't happen by flipping a switch. It takes work. It takes work. Dedicated, intentional, focused work. And that's what we're doing with 52 weeks.
That it does. So our promise. Got to have a promise.
Got to have a promise.
And my favorite thing is the pinky swear. I was teaching my granddaughters pinky swears last week, but none of them knew what their pinky was, so we had to work through that to start with. But our promise to you, look. So there is a place that we're working towards, right? When we make a promise or make any kind of a commitment, there's a destination that we're looking towards, and this is the destination that Blaine and I hold in our heart. The destination is to help you have an enhanced capacity for sustainable success. Scale will occur. We can answer questions about skills, and yes, we can talk about all the domains of business and the 9 different pieces of business that it takes to run a company. We can do that ad nauseum, but our intention is that by the end of the year, you have a capacity for sustained success. You're not creating it once; you're creating something that grows and leaves a legacy. And that we help you lead with fewer unintended consequences. And with inside of that model that Blaine was talking about, we focus on that. Unintended consequences are going to occur, but how do you have fewer unintended consequences and diminish the impact of the consequences that come your way? And build an organization that's authentic, non-replicable. And our other promise to you is you get to join a network of leaders, of people who are going to be in the room that are going to challenge Blaine and I to think, challenge you to think, and call us on our stuff. If we're not doing that within the body of a that's a technical term, call us on our stuff. If we're not doing that within the body of the mastermind, then the mastermind serves no purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And to Napoleon Hill's point, the mastermind,
perfect.
2 or more people come together. I mean, there's biblical admonitions about this, but when 2 or more are gathered, things begin to magically occur that wouldn't occur if it was just a single mind.
Right.
A mastermind. You get different eyes, different ears on what it is that you're trying to achieve. They see things from different perspectives that you're blind to. And you can, the use of the mastermind here is to actually facilitate incorporating those different ideas, those different vantage points into a bespoke way that you can begin leveraging and create a different level of success. When you think about people who have, worked with masterminds, Thomas Edison, Firestone, you go back in history, these people literally attributed their success to the mastermind groups of which they were a part.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
There you go. And that's what we're looking for in the power of the mastermind. It is not just about Blaine and I.
Oh, no. We just bring some information to the table and experience about how you might use that information.
Right. There you go. So our invitation, the mastermind, the start date for the mastermind is October 20th. We know that in short order, this is limited to, we're estimating limitation at about 25 leaders in it. There is an economic component to it. We won't discuss the economic component here other than to say there is an economic component. How you weigh value against your career, we're happy to have that conversation with you. The commitment's about 3 hours a week, which is the hour, give or take a nickel, inside of the mastermind session with us, time with mentors, and in your time in study, if you're not committed to time in study within the body of the mastermind, you're not going to take the richness away that's going to be within the content. And do the exercises, do the work actually.
Yeah.
And the next step, always, there is a point in time where we will stop taking applicants into the mastermind because there's planning and things we need to send and all of the logistic stuff that's got to happen. So there is a point in time where we're estimating that point in time is October 14th. So the only call to action really is schedule a call with Blaine and I.
Yeah. Either scan that QR code or just type it into your browser, and there's a calendar, and you just pick a date and a time, and you'll get one or both of us.
Yeah. And if it's both of us, bring a lunch because we'll be there for a while.
Yeah.
If we're there alone, it'll probably be 20 minutes. But if we're there together, it'll be a longer call. And there we go. Join us.
Yeah. Just join us here. We're looking for a way to serve. Okay. And in that conversation, we'll give you more information and whatever we can to provide you with knowledge or information so that you can make a knowledgeable decision. And the whole intent is this mastermind a good fit for me? Is it? And if it is, we'll walk you through the economics and get you signed up. The intent is not to sell you on something. And I want to be real clear about that. We're not trying to sell anybody into this mastermind. If it's a fit, great. And fit means it has to work for you as well as, and we're curating this group, it has to work for us in the sense of who are we putting in the room. Yeah. So we are very clear about the kinds of participants that we're looking for: learners, people that are curious, people that want to excel, people that are interested in growing. I mean, those sorts of attributes are certainly part and parcel of what we'll talk about. Are you willing to start over? Yeah. Sustainable success, developing the capacity to continuously start over.
Yeah.
So take advantage of it. Yeah, have a conversation with us, and we would love to talk with you. Book a call.
There you go. That's it for today.
That's it. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
And thank you, Dr. Bartlett.
Dr. White. I've appreciated bouncing this idea around with you.
Yeah. Looking forward to this year's cohort. So
yeah. And as you're listening, if you've got friends, this is going to be up on both Doland's and my LinkedIn site, my Instagram. It'll be up on my Facebook, Doland's Facebook as well. It's on my YouTube channel, Doland's YouTube channel. So feel free to sit down with somebody with a bowl of popcorn and have them watch this with you. Yeah. The recordings are there. And we're going to be doing another one of these next week. And the week following. So we've got, like we said, the 14th is when we're going to be closing off, roughly the 14th is when we're going to be closing the enrollment off. So you got about 2 weeks here where we can actually play with you and bring some people, and we'll have a conversation.
There you go. Perfect.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for being with us. Honor to be here.